Welcome to the Jedburgh Podcast. I'm the creator and host, Fran Racioppi. Each episode, I speak with transformative leaders, visionaries, drivers of change, and those dedicated to winning no matter the challenge. The Jedburgh Podcast is founded in the lineage of the special operations Jedburgh teams of the past and is produced in partnership with Talent War Group, a management consulting and executive search firm focused on helping you optimize the people side of your business. We're sponsored by Jersey Mike Subs. Together, we share the mission of giving, making a difference in someone's life. Visit the Jedburgh Podcast, Talent War Group, and Jersey Mike Subs on the web and on all social media. A percentage of all proceeds is dedicated to the Special Operations Warrior Foundation.
I've landed speaking gigs because of the red hat.
Yes.
I was at Bitcoin Miami. People recognized me with 30-some-odd thousand people in attendance as the podcast guy and approached me at Bitcoin Miami because of I saw the red hat.
Yeah.
I focused on being interested and not interesting.
Right.
And that's really what the shift was. And I think any good podcaster has to be that kind of curious, but not profound.
Curious. I love that.
That's
Curious.
a really good, I've never had it positioned that way.
His boss called and said, Paul's in the hospital. It doesn't look good. You need to come right now.
Oh.
And when I got there, I didn't recognize him. His whole body was crushed in. He had a punctured lung and everything. And
Podfest is the world's largest community of podcasters. This year, I was honored to be able to speak at and to host the Military Forum in sunny Orlando on Memorial Day weekend. Since podcasting is way more fun as a crowd, and I usually do it myself, and I will never again let a great live event go unrecorded, I invited my guest from episode 53 and fellow Podfest speaker Juliet Hahn to come together for a joint Jedburgh Podcast, Your Next Stop series of Podfest episodes.
And when Fran asked me to co-host, I said, I am there because we had such great synergy when we did our recordings together. And when I saw Fran set up this amazing live experience with this podcast and people were coming all over to check out what we were doing, it was an amazing experience. And in this Podfest compilation, we interview Larry Roberts, who is the newsletter editor of Podfest. He sits down with us to talk about the importance of branding and how his red hat changed his life. We also sit down with Michael O'Neill, who has 11 million subscribers to his podcast, and now he's tackling YouTube. And we sat down with power couple Jennifer and Paul Henczel. There's a funny story behind that. Fran met them the night before at a restaurant and missed the back of Paul's card where it says he was crushed alive.
Super embarrassing moment. I'm not talking about it here in this intro. You have to listen to the episode to find out for yourself. Check out the full video versions of all of our conversations and discussions from Podfest on YouTube. Don't miss our other episodes coming up over the next couple of weeks, including Pick Cherries, Katie Brinkley, and Shure Microphones. Follow me, Fran Racioppi, and the Jedburgh Podcast at jedburghpodcast.com and at Jedburgh Podcast on all social media.
And you can follow me. I am JulietHahn.com and I am Juliet Hahn on all social medias. You can also check out my podcast, Your Next Stop, on all your podcast players.
Time for Podfest. Larry, welcome to the Jedburgh Podcast and the Your Next Stop combination episode. So Juliet joined me down here. First of all, I want to thank you for having us down here, setting up Podfest. So you're one of the key people involved in the organization, setting it up. A couple of years off because of COVID, but everybody's back together. My first time down here, and
my first time too.
And Juliet
my
too,
first
and
time.
absolutely could not be more impressed with what has gone on down here, the community that's being built, and I sincerely am honored that you invited me to speak yesterday and also let me set this thing up here today because this has been absolutely awesome and we've met so many people. It's been an absolutely incredible experience.
That's so cool to hear that, man. You know, I love Podfest, and the last one was in 2020. And it was an amazing event as well. And in all honesty, that was my first ever in-person Podfest.
Really?
Oh, really?
But, yeah.
Okay.
And I was so blown away at the community and the support that literally everybody in this community gives to one another. And it's just such an amazing feeling to know that as an independent creator, there are resources out there and there are literally teams out there that are more than willing to share their knowledge with you and build you up and make you part of the community as well.
Well, and we, I mean, we've talked about this, Fran and I together. It's so
awesome to be like feeling the energy here. I
Yeah.
mean, everyone's excited to be together, but not only that, it doesn't matter where your podcast is. If you're starting out, if you're millions of downloads, everyone is here to help. Everyone's here to teach. Everyone's here to connect.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we're really missing is that connection piece that we were missing for so many years. So as Fran said, I'm so excited to be talking today about storytelling and just to be here with this community.
Yeah, no, it's great because, and I'll tell you something, and I should have shared this a minute ago, but back in 2020, and this sounds kind of cheesy, and yeah, I'm the editor of the newsletter for Podfest, so some people are going to go, you're biased, but maybe.
That's okay.
Yeah, but literally, Trivia Night, which is usually the first night of Podfest, I don't know if you guys participated in Trivia Night the other day, Trivia Night of 2020 literally changed my entire podcasting trajectory.
Why?
Because I didn't even want to go to Trivia Night because I'm like, I was a little too
Those
cool.
are the best times,
Yeah,
by the way.
yeah,
The
yeah.
best nights you ever have in your life are the ones where you say, I need to stay home tonight.
right.
Exactly. Well, I
Right.
met another podcaster for the first time, and we kind of hit it off or whatever. And she's like, "Are you gonna go play trivia?" I'm like, "No, I'm not gonna play trivia. I'm way too cool for that." She goes, "Come on, let's just go, man. Let's just go play trivia."
Right.
So we went in. We sat down at like the last table. Somebody randomly yelled out, "Sit at ours, sit at ours." So we took a seat. Unbeknownst to me, that at that table was my soon-to-be podcasting coach, who is David Hooper, wrote Big Podcast, amazing podcast coach, amazing radio contributor. I mean, he's just next level. I met him, hit it off. Of course, that changed my trajectory as well. Not only that, but that night, even though I was reluctant to play, our table won.
Oh, wow.
So because our table won,
Good.
we got a full VIP experience to the next Podfest. So we also got to meet the founder of Podfest, Chris Kremitzos. So I met Chris Kremitzos. So I met my future podcast coach.
That's so cool.
And I met my future, we'll call him my boss to a degree, So
Co-worker.
Yeah, co-worker. There we go. So those relationships were established that night right there. And I'd already been podcasting for 6 years, but I didn't know anybody in the space really.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
that first night at Podfest in 2020, I met two of the most influential people in my entire podcasting career. And since then, things have skyrocketed. And that's the potential that joining something like this community will do for you. Mm-hmm. You just have to show up, man. And everybody here, as I mentioned before, they're ready to take you to that next level.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, it's been such an experience. Talk for a bit about the growth of Podfest, right? Where did it come from? The vision behind it that Chris had.
Yeah.
And, it started, we were talking before we started recording here, that there was, 14 people at the first one, and it was
Right.
like, hey, what do you talk about?
Yeah,
and
it's
now
exactly
there's
it.
thousands of people here.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it started off as just a local meetup group. And it did start off with about 14. If you're listening, don't quote me on that number, but it's somewhere in the
they'll write
lower,
in, you're
Right,
wrong,
right.
Larry.
lower double digits, let's put it that way. And it literally grew to, just last year, even though we had to go virtual, we set 2 Guinness World Records.
Crazy.
For the largest.
Really?
Yes,
Yes.
two legitimate, real Guinness World Records for having the largest online podcasting conference with the number of attendees.
How many people? Now you better be exact.
The first, I'm very, very close on the first. Well, I think I'm dead on the first one. I think we hit it at 5,004 people the
Okay.
first time. And then we got real close to 6,000 the second time.
Wow.
And the second time was a struggle. Guinness is like, look, okay, you guys are really, it was a longer process. It was a really, really difficult process, but we managed to come through and we blew the first one out of the water. So holds 2 Guinness World Records. So that just shows going from a 14-person in-person
Right.
local meetup group
Yep.
to literally building a community that's so big, it set a Guinness World Record twice.
And one of the things that I love is, when the pandemic happened, you guys pivoted. It was like,
Yeah.
okay, we're not going to, because I should say, this is my first live event, but I was a part of it last year. I did a presentation, one of the tracks where people can go and listen that way. But it is, it's so important, and I think that's one of the things that we talk about on our podcast and in the world right now is about taking that pivot, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes, okay, things are not going to happen the way that you envision them, the way that you want them, but you have to take that pivot to find out where it is going to go. And now, look, we're here. So many people. I mean, we were just talking about how many different tracks are going on at the same time.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is so cool to see.
Yeah, we have over 350 speakers at this event that we're
Wow.
at right now.
Right.
And I was looking on our Whova app, which is our coordination and agenda app that we use, and we had 1,666 people registered for the event, virtually and in person. So in total, we're way up there as far as the numbers
Right.
go.
Yeah.
And it's so amazing because, as you mentioned, you probably can get your Guinness certificate. I'm pretty sure you're probably part of that event.
Yes, right,
I got mine. I spent the $35 and I got my certificate, and it's in the studio right now.
Right,
It's on his LinkedIn too.
Yeah, it's my cover photo. It's everything. No, not
Right,
really.
right.
But no, it just goes to show how hungry people are for this type of community, this type of content.
Yes.
And because of that pivot, so many relationships were established during that time from 2020 to today that we knew each other. We felt like we were best friends because we spent so much online time together.
Right.
But now, over the last few days, I have met so many of my best friends in person for the first time. And it's been amazing. And just getting that connection together and really being able to interact and love and support each other in person, it's just amazing.
And I know everyone asks you this, but just so the listeners can hear, what is the significance of the red hat?
Oh my gosh. This is kind of a fun story because, and I shouldn't say this on a podcast, it's going to get millions of downloads, but I turned 50 this year. Okay.
Woo.
No, you did not.
Yeah, I will in August.
He does not.
I turned 50 in August this year.
No way 50.
So being on stage as a speaker and talking to probably a younger generation that are these content creators these days, I wanted to look as young as possible. So I thought, you know what, I got to wear a brand, right? So I started wearing a Supreme hat, the brand Supreme.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was just a red hat with Supreme on there. And spent about $150 for this hat just to be cool, right?
Yeah, I'm undercharging for my hats.
Way undercharging.
Yeah.
So I had given several speeches, and Alex Sanfilippo, I think you probably know Alex, and if you don't, you need to. He came up to me, I think in November of last year after I presented at Podfest Origins in Tampa. And he goes, bro, why are you giving Supreme all this love? And I told him the story. I'm just trying to be cool, whatever. And he goes, but are they sponsoring you? I go, no, dude, they're definitely not sponsoring me. So they quit giving them love. He says, lose the Supreme and just grab the red hat. So as soon as I got home, I jumped on Amazon, ordered just a flat bill, red unbranded hat for $7.
Right.
Started rocking that. And I got to tell you, from November to now, I've landed speaking gigs because of the red hat.
Yes.
I was at Bitcoin Miami. People recognized me with 30-some-odd thousand people in attendance as the podcast guy and approached me at Bitcoin Miami because of I saw the red hat.
Yeah.
I walked into this venue 2 or 3 days ago. People were jumping up and down from all the way down the hall because of the red hat. It has become such a branding moniker, and you find it everywhere. All my headshots are black and white, but the hat's red. All my branding is black and white, but the hat's red. The red hat has become the calling card. And everybody that doesn't know me thinks they know me because they see the red hat.
Well, I
Right.
did that. I was like, oh, that's the red hat
Yeah,
guy.
yeah,
Why do I know
yeah.
the red hat guy? And I go,
Last night you were sitting in here in the big room.
Yeah.
When they were doing the influencer event, and that room is massive. I mean, one of the
Right.
biggest. And Juliet said, "Oh, I see Larry over there with the red hat." I'm like, I
hat.
can't even see that far.
Yeah.
Right.
I have a client that came in from Nashville to join me here, and he said the same thing. He was at the back of the room, and he ran up to me. He goes, bro, I just want you to know, I don't even have my glasses on. I saw the red hat. I know where you're at.
Right.
So, there's a big lesson there. That there's an authenticity factor there because I still have, it's got to be flat bill. That's just my thing.
Right.
Got to be tilted slightly to the right. That's just my thing. Whether it's cool or not, I don't know. That's just my gig.
It seems cool.
Yeah, it seems cool in my head.
And
so,
I'm getting to be your age, so I think it's cool. So maybe it
so
doesn't
there you
count.
go. But it's really just a testament to anybody out there that's looking to stand out in a crowd. Find that one thing that stands out and own it.
Yes.
Live it, be it. And you got to have that consistency, though. Just like I said, my business cards, my face, black and white, red hat, headshots, black and white. I mean, it's consistent throughout everything that I do. And while I didn't ever know I was going to be recognized as the red hat guy, and sometimes, honestly, I really like blue better, so I'm kind of stuck with red. But it's been so beneficial, and it's just amazing that, 7 months since November, just the overall impact that wearing the red hat and standing out in a sea of thousands of other podcasters, what the difference is made.
Yeah.
And we've touched on this before, and I maybe are going to know what I'm going to say. But did you hear the excitement when Larry started talking about the red hat? And that's one of the things. No, I'm not kidding, but that's one of the things I love to talk about, like on my podcast, is to hear when people get excited and the listeners can hear, like that's something that means something to you. You worked hard on it, and it is we all do things, and it's like, okay, what's going to work? What's going to hit? What's going to miss? What's going to hit? What's going to miss? And when you get those hits, you're like, yes, I'm so happy that I got a hit there. So, I mean, I just think it's awesome.
Well, a lot of people ask, how do you keep getting all these speaking gigs? Because this is my 7th gig this year. And I just came from Austin, and another guy that was there speaking, and I speak on branding most of the time, ironically enough. I spoke on branding here, how to build a strong personal podcast brand. And when I got down to Austin, the guy goes, what are you going to get up there and talk about for 30 minutes? How to wear a red hat? And not specifically, but
7 minutes.
You can bet it's going to be part of it, because I learned so much just with this transition. And I got again, right now, and these numbers are updated as of last week, there are 504,000 active podcasts out there.
What's considered active? Last 90 days?
Active is 90 days and at least 10 episodes.
Okay.
And those are Apple statistics from Apple Podcasts. So if you look someplace else, you're going to get some variations on how, but those are active only. There's 2.5 million that are out there that may not be considered active. And again, this is Apple only. So the numbers can fluctuate.
So it's not a lot of competition for those of us who are trying to make it.
No, not at all. It's only 500,000 that are out there.
Right.
So you're really, I mean, you can jump out there and be somebody just like that. But no, it's not. I've been podcasting 8 years.
Right.
And I only started seeing that progression, well, honestly, when I told you, Trivia Night of 2020, that's when things started changing. And it's only because I got involved in a community and started figuring out the ins and outs of the industry and learning and absorbing all of this massive content and all this tremendous knowledge that's so willingly shared that I really started seeing that transition and that change. Yeah. And it led me to January 4th of last year, I left a 21-year career with the same company to podcast and do podcasting and speaking full time.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so exciting that all the hard work that you put in, you're seeing it. And this is what, again, I talk about often is sometimes when you think, okay, is this the path I'm supposed to be on, right? And you keep kind of feeling those feelings, and it's like, okay, I'm walking through this door. Is this the right door? Or am I supposed to go left? Or am I supposed to go right? And so many people give up too soon. They give up before it's really their time that's meant to happen. And so I love that you stayed the course, changed things up a little bit, and then we're like, okay, let's see where this takes me.
Well, and that's the thing, too. I mean, I'm even in between shows right now. I just killed my last podcast 2 weeks ago, and I'm in between launching Bitcoin Impact is going to be my new show. And the only thing that's holding me back is my voice. As you can probably hear right now, I sound a little raspy. So I can't even record my new show, so I'm stuck. But the thing that I want to reinforce there with that is that you're going to change your show most likely. It may not be your first show that gets you where you want to go. I think I've had 4 podcasts total. Bitcoin Impact will be my 4th show in the line of shows since I've been doing this 8 years. So find your niche, find your drive, find your design, find your message. And it may take time, and you may strike out that first time. You may strike out the second time. Right. But keep coming back and keep going at it, and you're going to find that niche eventually.
Love that.
So talk more about the show you're going to launch.
Yeah, Bitcoin Impact. It's going to be there's a lot of people that have heard the term Bitcoin, a lot of people that know the term cryptocurrency.
Well, we just talked about NFTs with Katie Brinkley, and we were completely exposed. Julia and I were completely exposed about our lack of knowledge of NFTs, and so.
And I think I had a little more than you did.
She beat me on it. I had no idea.
Well, Katie is a rock star for starters, and her podcast is NFT Ninjas, phenomenal show.
One of 3 podcasts.
Yeah. And she's just an amazing creator and amazing social media expert. So if you guys don't know Katie, get in contact with Katie. She's awesome. And she kind of influenced me on the Bitcoin Impact show a little bit as well, because I was like, that is what we need to be talking about right now, right?
Right.
But honestly, the reason I got inspired to launch the show at Bitcoin Miami about, 2 months ago? I don't remember the exact date. Like I said, I've been everywhere this year. But I realized that there's so many people out there that hear these terms, but they have no idea what they mean. So with Bitcoin Impact, my goal is to take and remove the technical and remove really the deep dive investing aspects of it and talk about the practical application and the practical impact that Bitcoin and crypto and blockchain technology has had on every one of us, whether we realize it or not. So I really want to take the general public and tear down that veil of technical obscurity and speak to the average person so they can understand what this technology is capable of and how they can take advantage of it to benefit them, their families, and their futures as well.
Love that.
Wow. And when's it launch?
As soon as my voice heals. I mean, honestly, that is literally it. I wish I could give a date. I really do. But I can't because I got COVID in Bitcoin Miami. Okay, so I brought home the bonus package. Right. And I want to thank Jordan Peterson for that because he was the only talk that I went to. And everybody that I know that went to Jordan Peterson, got COVID.
Oh, gosh.
And everybody that didn't go to Jordan Peterson did not. So I'm blaming Jordan Peterson. I still love him. He's cool, whatever.
Right.
But I thank you for COVID, Jordan Peterson. And my wife thanks you too. But so everything's in place. I mean, the art. I've even got merch already ready to rock. I'm ready to go. And it's going to be a video first show. So that's one of the transitions that I've made as well. Still doing audio. It's still going to be available as an audio podcast. But we're really diving into the video first aspect of podcasting with Bitcoin Impact. I'm sponsored by Riverside, so they're going to be promoting the show as well. So that's going to be a tremendous opportunity there. But as soon as you can actually hear Larry again, we'll get that intro knocked out and we'll get launched. Because the content's there. The interviews are there. Yeah. Everything's in place. Just got to be able to create the content. And right now, I don't want to launch with a partial brand.
Right.
So,
and I love Riverside. That's where I record.
Yeah,
as
they're
well.
tremendous.
They're great.
Tremendous.
Great.
Yeah. So what else? What else can we expect here at Podfest?
Well, I know tonight we've got a massive party to wrap everything up. Tonight's the finale party, but there's still content that's going to be going on tomorrow. So if anybody's looking to bail out of here early, I highly recommend you don't. Hang out for tomorrow's stuff. There's still tremendous things to learn. Tonight's going to be amazing. We're going to have a dance floor. We got 3 different DJs. We got a live rock band. I mean, we're going to blow this thing out of here tonight and have a really, really good time.
Okay.
Oh boy.
You can tell where my focus is shifted. I went from education to party time.
I got
it's
my
getting
party
later in
shoes
the
on.
day, so it's going to go more that way.
Yeah.
I got my party shoes on. I'm ready.
Awesome. Well, Larry, thanks for hopping in here with us. We really appreciate it. And again, thanks for having us down here. It's been a truly impactful and amazing opportunity.
Thank you for having me. It's been a great opportunity to be on your show. Thank you again so very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Right. Thank you
Best
so much.
Best of luck.
All right, perfect.
Michael, thanks for taking some time to join Juliet and I on the Jedburgh Podcast. Your next stop is Juliet's show. We came together for this collaboration, and we're going to be in full disclosure with you right now. We stalked you on the Hoova app. And then and she tracked you down over the last couple of days and was not letting you off the hook until we dragged you in.
I appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for letting me be here. It's a little slow. It was a late night, so all my brain cells are organizing right now. But that's the nature of conferencing. I did a little spiel at the big influencer party thing last night, and it was like. This is what this is. This is sort of go, go, go.
Yes.
And then you get exhausted on Monday and you go, all right, that was, and especially after taking a couple years off, I really appreciate just the community again. So, you just get a bit of a scratchy voice. That's how that works.
Right. And, we were talking about it with a couple of other guests that it's the community. It's the podcasters coming together. And it doesn't matter if you have millions of downloads, if you're just starting out. Everyone's here to really just rejoin and talk and connect. And it's so, we really missed that connection and that community aspect during the pandemic. So, this is what I love about this. The
Nobody's
energy.
done a better job, by the way, with a community with a conference that has grown so large than Chris has with this one.
So true.
The community aspect of this particular conference is still so great. It still feels like it did in 2015. It's just way bigger than it was. We were in like a little tiny hotel in like one room, and there was like, this is the one track, and here's the other track, and that was it. And now it's, they got like 20 tracks in this thing. And
right,
it's
it's amazing.
Conference.
Yeah, there's like at any one time, there's like 10 conversations going on so many things. And I think all of us, so we're just honored to be able to come here and be asked to speak. I mean, that's how I felt. You want me to come and speak here? I've only been doing this for like 15 months, but I was so honored to be able to do that.
What's been being a former Green Beret, what's been the most challenging transition for you to turn into someone who now has to be an entertainer?
Well, my daughter will say you're not even entertaining, so we have to
that's a
start
problem.
there. That's a problem. I think it takes an incredible amount of energy, and I think it takes an incredible amount of discipline and focus. And I come from a world. The whole talk I gave yesterday.
I don't have either of those two things, so I'm not sure how much I can do.
The whole talk that I gave yesterday is called the special operations mindset, right? And the very first thing I say is that being special forces is not special. And there's nothing that different from me than anybody else, but there's a sense of commitment, there's a sense of discipline, and there's a standard that you uphold to a level that I call no compromise. And
I would argue that that's special, but go ahead.
and transitioning that,
very special to
but
me.
it's a mindset, right? Like physically, right, mentally, there's no difference between me or anybody else. And you have to take that to succeed in this space, because you talked about the growth of this event, but we could talk about all day about the growth of this industry.
Right.
And the fact that the barrier to entry, we just had Katie Brinkley in here and we spoke to her. She's got 3 podcasts, and one of the things we talked to her about was the barrier to entry, and the barrier to entry is so low in podcasting that everyone can jump in.
In 2013 when I started.
Yeah.
You had to like really learn gear and stuff. Now the stuff is amazing.
Right.
You can buy literally a $69 mic on Amazon and be like, oh, it sounds pretty good, and you're off to the races.
Yeah,
Right.
and that's it. And you can self-upload. It takes 2 seconds, and you're done. So in order to separate yourself, in my perspective, you have to pay attention to absolutely everything. And I really try to make sure that we're locked in all the time. We don't get it right very often, and so then you have to demonstrate. We talk about the 9 characteristics of performance on this podcast that Special Operations Command uses, and resiliency and adaptability are 2 of those. And we and my team and myself demonstrate resiliency and adaptability and drive every day.
But go ahead.
I was going to say 2 things on that. One is that when you're first starting, one of my good buddies is a drum teacher. His name is Mike Johnston, and I was a touring drummer for 10 years, and so I'm like a pretty good player overall, but I can sit down with Mike, who's a career educator. He's a great player, but he can literally, I can be doing a thing, be like, dude, check this out, and he goes, cool, now keep a quarter note pulse with your left foot, and it's as if I've never played drums before.
Right.
Like it just completely unravels. And the cool thing about drums in that respect is that you have, just like being an athlete, is that there's no ego attached to not being good at something.
Yeah.
You just go, cool, I got to get better at this, and you just start doing it.
Right.
So he has these wristbands he gives out when he does these drum camps, and they just say, embrace the suck.
Yeah, I use
gotta
that
like,
phrase with
embrace
organizations
the
I
suck.
work with.
It's just the thing.
Yeah.
And the part B is that I think what the secret sauce, and when I teach beginners these kinds of things, I say, you may not realize this, but you are now in competition with NPR and Howard Stern and Netflix, and you are now in the media just as much as you could go to an event and get a media pass, which you can. It's one of the more underutilized things that happens in the podcasting world.
Right.
Like I've gone to the Super Bowl on a media pass before.
I did that this year. Yeah.
So because of that, it is your responsibility to now be good at the craft.
Yes.
And I really nerd hard out about podcast interviews and things like that, because like if someone's going to flip over from NPR to my show, I don't want there to be a drop off.
Right.
I want to be that good, and very, 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 very few podcasters are.
Yeah.
Right.
They don't understand that entertainment is paramount to anything else. Think of it like your favorite teacher. If you had some favorite algebra teacher, that wasn't your favorite teacher because they were great at algebra. They told great stories and they were entertaining.
Right. Yes.
So you learned those lessons because they were entertaining. If we be like, I've got to provide value every time, it's like nobody wants value with every conversation.
Right.
Sometimes they just want to laugh, or they want to have just a pretty good time.
Or just
think it's a great
connect
point.
through the stories. And you brought
Whatever
that
it
up.
is,
Stories are so important because it really gives you a deeper connection to the person you're talking to. Like what you just said about the drumming and stuff, I'm like, ooh, I want to know more about that. I want to know more about what Michael just said, because even though I'm not a drummer and I can't even, I'm not musical at all. I like music, but I do want to know that aspect about you, because the way you could tell in your energy, the way that your body moved, the way that your voice went up, that you were excited about that. That's something that you're interested in.
It's really amazing, actually, to you'll see some YouTube video, some guy doing a thing, and you go, oh, cool, I'm going to try it, and go and sit down, and I can't do it at all.
Right.
Like, it does not work. And then 15 minutes later, I'm ripping through it. And that's just an amazing, to me, it's an amazing combination of your synapses firing, which mine aren't very well right now, and just the muscle memory kicking back in and going, oh, this is actually this. I've done this a million times. I just didn't know. It's almost like when you learn a new sport. Like I'm totally addicted to pickleball right now. And
It's growing. It's huge.
Right.
So good.
Huge.
It's huge
But
in my
whenever
area.
I'm teaching somebody, I always ask them, what did you play? Have you ever played anything? They're like, oh, I played softball. I'm like, all right, well, that's the forehand. Like your swing is the same swing. So it's just sometimes connecting to things that we have already done. And so for podcasters, if you've, I've got this story where it's okay if I tell it real quick?
Yeah, please.
I was out to happy hour with, there's a theme here, no. I was out to happy hour with a friend of mine, and she brought a friend, and it was like probably 2 years into my show. And, my show is an hour, and I hit record and I hit stop. I never edit. I've done 850-something episodes. I've never edited a show.
That's how we run.
Yeah.
We run true.
This is what the show is.
Yeah, we run true.
And I do it because I like the idea of being sort of live to tape like they did in the 60s, you know?
Yeah.
And it puts more onus on me to be good at my job and be a good host and plug my guests and do a good interview and all this stuff. So we're sitting here having this happy hour, and then my friend goes off to the restroom, and I'm sitting with her friend, and it's the worst small talk. We can't think of a thing to say to each other. And I thought, wait a second. I do a show when I sit down with a stranger and I hit record, and we do this amazing show. And how am I not able to have this conversation right now? So in my head, I flipped the mic on, and all of a sudden we were having this great conversation. And to sum that up, it's kind of like I focused on being interested and not interesting.
Right.
And that's really what the shift was. And I think any good podcaster has to be that kind of curious, but not profound.
Curious. I love that.
That's
Curious.
a really good. I've never had it positioned that way.
Right. I was going to say
actually, and we should caveat that we stalked Michael because of his background, right? I mean, he has an entire course called The Art of the Interview. So he told us right before we started that we better not fuck this up, right?
Yeah.
We need to be good. We need to be locked on. This is actually so I told you Juliet was on my show, and then I subsequently went on hers. This is our first collaboration.
Oh, nice.
Where
Yeah,
we've
cool.
come on together, right? And said, well,
Nice.
can we co-host together? And so we're testing it out. I think it's been going pretty well.
It's good.
Now,
And we connect
will you
well.
guys will you do a little like intro and outro?
Yeah.
Where you'll talk over it, or will it just be like music that gets put on each side?
No, we will find time today to record
Got
an
it.
intro of her
Yeah,
and I
cool.
talking about this
About this
episode.
interview, yeah.
And then we'll
Yeah,
both
yeah.
put them out on our RSS
Yeah.
feed. So it'll be like, here's a double,
Yeah.
show kind of thing.
Because otherwise, I was gonna take it a task for something you didn't do
Right.
already. That's like the biggest cardinal sin that 97% of podcasters do, and that is when you guys listen to podcasts, obviously.
Yep.
When's the last time, or of podcasts you listen to, how often do you make it to the very end of a show? Like the closing credits.
Yeah.
Not that much.
Not that much.
When do 99% of podcasters promote their guests?
It's at
At
the end.
When no one's listening to the show
Yeah.
anymore.
Right.
Always plug the guests at the beginning. This is why I asked about the intro outro, because you would do that in the intro.
Right.
And be like, yeah, this is their thing in social
Yep.
media. But generally, since I don't do a separate intro, I have to get all of that out of the way. I'll be like, today's guest has won 9 Emmys. They've done blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, blank. So I would introduce them like I do someone on stage.
Right.
And then before I say a word, I'll be like, you can find them at blah, blah, blah.com and all their social media is blah, blah. And then as the show goes on, if they have this great point, I might say something like, guys, you got to tweet them at blah, blah, blah. Like I'll plug them 10 times
Right.
during the
Oh,
course
that's
of the
smart.
show. And the reason why is because I want if I was lucky enough to get some A-lister guest, 2 things. One, I want them to go, holy shit, this guy knows what he's doing.
Right.
And number 2, I want them to tell all of their A-lister friends, that was a great
Right.
show.
Exactly.
You should be on that guy's show. And that's
Right.
how I've gotten like great guests for, now 9 years.
The
So.
experience and now I'm gonna do this because you just said your show for 9 years. So the Solopreneur podcast,
Soulpreneur Hour.
Solopreneur
Right.
Hour
Yeah.
is yours. But
Correct.
what you just said about the actual interview, what I call the experience, I think is the most important thing. I've said this to people before because they said, why do you put so much time into the preparation for your interviews? And I said, because it's about the experience that the guest has in their interaction with me.
Yes.
9 out of 10 times, the guest doesn't listen to the interview after. They know what they talked about. Some do, most don't. But they need to walk out of that conversation and say, that was awesome.
Yeah. And I felt good.
feel
Yeah.
awesome having had that
And
conversation.
if it's different, so this is where it's kind of fun. If you do a killer intro for somebody, this is kind of the upside. So you're kind of working without a net if they're live on the show and they're quiet and you do a great effusive intro for them. If you nail that, and what I like to do is I call it the Eminem 8 Mile intro, which is, you guys ever see 8 Mile with Eminem?
Love it.
So that very closing rap battle, he had to go first. So he used all of the guy's ammo against him.
Right.
And so the guy had nothing to say.
Yes.
So what I like to do is if I'm bringing somebody on that's known for a thing, I cover their entire thing in the intro. So now they have to come up with new shit on my show.
Right.
They can't just tell me
that.
the thing they do. So two things happen. One, they go, oh, this guy's got chops. And two, they go, oh, thank God, I don't have to tell this stupid story about the duck crossing the road again. And it really opens them up, and it changes the whole dynamic of the show, and they end up having a great time and tell their other little A-list.
It takes it deeper. So if I have guests on who read books, I read their book. If they have a show, I watch their show, and then I'll pull the quotes.
Yeah.
And so in every block that we have, I'll open it up. I'll read the quote. I'll say, you talked about this in this context. Now tell me more about, what, why, how.
Yeah.
And let's go through that. And then and like you said, they look at you and they're like, whoa.
Right.
Now I got to think about this.
Yeah.
Right.
You've got to access a new spot.
And one of my favorite things is to ask questions that typically people don't ask. So on my podcast, it's about their story. So like where they got where they are and why, right? So we kind of dive into little parts of their story, maybe when they were a child. Oh, I remember this. And then connecting the dots for them is what lights me on fire. Because all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, you're right. I didn't think about that. What happened to me, throughout my schooling actually prepared me to be the person that I am today because of all these experiences. And I'm like, that's exactly what it is. And it's so cool to see that happen and then them leave and be like, you know what? I've never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys know who James Altucher is? He's a big podcast and writer guy in New York City. And I had him on in studio. So we were live. And he's this angsty Jewish guy from New York. And I grew up in Philly, all around that world. And, I was like the one Gentile in the town that I grew up in. So, I really know that community. And so we were 2 minutes into the show, and I said, man, you must have been really close to your grandfather. And he was physically like, how would you know that? And in milliseconds, I was like, well, this is like, he's a super curious, almost like Larry King kind of Jewish guy.
Right.
Annoyingly, but in a charming Jewishness. Right. And he was so curious, and what would happen as I grew up is I'd see the annoyed parents that wouldn't want to answer any more questions. Go talk to your grandpa. And they would go and they would talk to their grandparents who would be happy to chat with him about it. It's exactly what happened. It's exactly how he grew up. But I only had that insight because I grew up that way.
I love that.
And he was like, wow, but that is exactly the kind of thing that if you can connect the dots, you go, man, how on earth would you put that together? That's unreal.
And you brought a point up, and I'm going to touch on it really quickly because I know this can go on forever.
Yeah.
But the questions. So I'm a huge person about questions. So when my kids were little, I answered every one of their questions. So I would have friends that would say, oh my gosh, can you answer my kid's question? Because I don't know how you do it. I love questions.
Oh, interesting.
I literally have brought my kids up where I'm like, you don't understand something, you are curious about something, you need to ask it because you're going to learn something from that curiosity that you have. And so that is something that is not taught, and I think it needs to be taught more to children and adults. If you're curious about it, ask it because there's going to be an answer behind that you might not be aware of, but you're going to learn something and become a better person because of it.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you're a natural teacher.
I don't know about
or
that.
Or a natural explainer or something.
I do. I explain. I'm curious. That's what I'm curious. Yeah. I love that.
I want to ask about YouTube.
Okay.
Because you through COVID, through the pandemic, made a bit of a shift, a little bit of still involved tremendously in the podcast world, but have taken on this YouTube. And you started a channel, and you're over 100,000 downloads, views a month on it. I'm getting ruined on YouTube right now. Like, we're producing awesome videos. They're professionally done, and I have 25 downloads and 25 views of some of my videos, getting crushed.
What's the content?
It's content from the podcast.
Oh, this doesn't work.
So, but we have promo videos. We have we have the episodes.
This doesn't work.
This is interesting.
But I have some that have thousands.
The answers we're not Joe Rogan.
Yeah,
and this doesn't work. So
he's making me feel better. Although I have a lot of wasted time.
It's not and money. everyone is trying it. It's not going to work. You can't compete against people that are walking in with millions of dollars of budget and a set and a producer, and you just can't. It's just not going to happen unless you walk in with some ammo. You got to walk in with some audience, and you've got to have a hook that they don't. The only way I see any podcast content working right now that's video based is repurposing it to like TikTok and Instagram, but not YouTube. Nobody goes to, no regular podcast listener who are our people goes to YouTube to listen to a podcast.
Right, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Different if you're a stand-up comedian and you're by default an entertaining human, and people are like, oh, I want to see that, and they bring, if it's Mike Tyson bringing some people in, you're like, well, he's a train wreck, and I want to watch everything he does because that's interesting, but I don't know, you probably get 95% of the show audio only, and you could still be on a treadmill or walking your dog.
Right.
So that's what you're competing against.
So I shouldn't feel that bad about it.
No, because it's not.
That makes me feel so much better.
Yes.
The odds of traction happening for a podcast on YouTube are like slim.
Yeah.
Slim.
So I do little snippets, though. I'll do like little
that
parts.
Works.
I was going to say, because that does
do
get
shorts.
me. Yeah, I'll do little shorts.
Do shorts. The point is, you got to use the platform in the way that the platform was designed. I've had my podcast has had 10 or 11 million downloads now. I've got 0 on YouTube.
Right.
Because who cares?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But
now I feel way better.
Car stuff. But car stuff on YouTube, great. People love to watch that. They want to see me weld something and fix something. It's a more visual medium.
Right.
So you just have to apply you got to use the platform the way it's designed. So if you have something visual, if you were doing man on the street interviews where you were literally physically walking around here and going blah, 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 that would work on YouTube.
Got it.
But sitting down with another person, there's nothing entertaining about this.
We did an episode about it was called Midnight Express, from Midnight Express powerboats down in Miami.
Yeah.
And we put B-roll of the boats in the background. That one's done really well because people want to see the boats.
Yeah.
Right. So I have an interesting question for you. Well, I think it's interesting, but I'm interested in your answer, I guess I should say. So you kind of told us a little bit before, but what made you pivot into the car, doing the welding?
I was already working on it. It was already a brand I was building. I nerd out about that kind of stuff. So I eventually wanted to open this. I've been deeply immersed in the vintage Porsche world since 2003. And so I wanted to build a channel because I want to open a retail store, but I wanted to get investors, and I wanted the investors to see, hey, I already have this big audience, so this is a no-brainer. So I worked backwards from that just to try to build this channel. So I found a cool car, and I've been doing a cool project for like 2 years. And then COVID happened, and I felt it felt very tone deaf to be talking about like entrepreneurship and personal branding and things like that while the world was burning. And I was just like, I'm just going to work on a car and go to my garage and go do this for a minute. So I did, and the channel I had finally, after a freaking grind, and that was the other thing I was going to say, is that YouTube is an absolute grind.
Right.
Yeah.
It's 1 or 2 subs first like a week, and then maybe a day if you're lucky. And if you play the game right, you might get a hit song, and I'm making air quotes.
Yeah.
You might get the hit song that the algorithm loves, and it spikes, and you go, okay.
Yeah, that just happened to us with one of our episodes.
Right.
And I was like, we turned the corner, and the next one, boom, 0.
Right.
But I went, I remember November 2020, I was very frustrated because I've been doing it for, I think I'd had 1,500 subs, and I've been doing it for like a couple years. And then December 2020, and I was like close, going, this is stupid. I'm getting like 2 subscribers a day. I'm still going to build this car, but maybe I shouldn't be doing this. And I did a time-lapse video the first year of working on this car, and overnight it did something like 15,000 views.
So cool.
And now it has almost 1.2 million.
Wow.
And the channel went from whatever it was, 2,000 to 15,000 to 20,000. Like it was like And so now I'm getting 700 to 1,000 subs a month, and it's still a small channel. So I have 23,000, I think. in the grand scheme of things, it's not that big. But I'm doing 100,000 views a month, which is great for that size of a channel. And it's so hyper niche that anybody in the vintage Porsche universe, and people, we nerd out hard about these things. We spend money on them. We're into them. It's almost like the gun culture where people are like into guns and they were like, oh, cool, I'm just going to collect them and rebuild them and blah, blah. This guy makes custom things or whatever. And it's people are very willing to spend money on them. So now that the supply chain issues are starting to open back up again, I can like reach out to these advertisers and say, hey, can we do a brand deal? Can I do like 6 live reads for you for $1,500 or whatever it is?
Right.
And actually monetize in a much bigger way than YouTube will pay you, which is not much.
And it's really the thing that's cool is I love how, again, we've talked about this. You could hear how you got excited, right? You're like, and the other thing is that you were almost on the edge. And this is what I talk about on my podcast a lot. When you think it's not what you're meant to be doing, give it a little bit more time. Because until you really get those signs that, okay, this is something that I need to lay to rest. It's not what I'm meant to be doing. But the fact that you it was like God or the universe, whatever you believe in, was like, dude, no, I don't want you to stop. So we're going to really blow you up here so you can see, okay, I got that energy back. I got that excitement back. Let's see where this goes. And then you've been doing this now and teaching other people how to do it. Which is amazing. So do you want to touch on that a little bit?
I mean, I teach as much as I can, but I'm doing the closing keynote here today, actually, at VidFest. So Podfest and VidFest are like one conference. And so I'm actually I did 2 things for Podfest and 1 thing for VidFest. And so my talk is how to build a small but mighty YouTube channel without friends, fakes, or family.
Okay, well, that's me. So I'm in on that.
Yeah. What that means, I need
that knowledge.
I don't have like Jake Paul as my, I can't do a collab with some big giant person. I'm not doing prank videos or, and I'm not part of a family channel that's like unboxing a Minecraft Lego. All of which, if you're doing any of those things, you could blow a channel up pretty fast. Like it's, but the meat on the other end, the people that are watching that stuff aren't as rich of an audience member to monetize as someone who's watching what I'm doing.
Right.
Which is, vintage Porsche stuff. I know that all 23,000 of my people are typically DIY dudes in a garage. So that means I can reach out to tool companies. I can reach out to,
Smart.
anything that any of the satellite type companies can be potential advertisers for me. Anybody in the automotive space.
Right.
So it's a much denser ability to monetize, but God, is it way longer to build the channel. It's a tough road to hoe, as they say.
Right.
So, and there's a guy here that's doing incredible. I forget his first name, but he's the plumber. Have you seen him?
No.
So he's got a huge plumbing channel. Like, he's just a career plumber.
Right.
He started making YouTube videos. He now has 600,000-700,000 subs. He's
love that.
Speaks all over the world, but has really shown this industry that, and he's, I don't know, in the 60s probably. He's showing everybody you don't have to be, a 22-year-old influencer.
Right. I love that. To do it.
To do any of this stuff. And I love that. And so he would be the kind of guy I'd look to and go, all right, and I will go back, and when I get back, I will go through his channel and deconstruct, all right, I see what he did here. I can apply this to mine and do, okay, I could do a video on, doing body work in the same way that he did this thing.
Right.
Smart.
I'll look at his thumbnails. I'll look at his titles. I'll look at how he, a good example is there was a guy who was a lawyer. Again, could not be more of a boring career to, and he's literally talking about law stuff on his YouTube channel and helping law students study for their bar exam and, useful for whoever that is, but nobody gives a shit. It is not a channel that's doing well. And then he put out a video, lawyer reacts to My Cousin Vinny. So he's a lawyer. He then watched the scenes in My Cousin Vinny, and he gave actual so here's what he was talking about here and blah, blah, blah. interesting as hell, gets millions of views.
so
Channel
funny.
blows up to. All he starts doing is reacting to like movies.
Right.
And that's what people dug. That's what people are into. So if you want to blow a channel up, it would be former Green Beret reacts to military scenes all day long.
Yeah.
That
movies.
That's a good one.
Kill with that.
Yeah.
All right. You
and
just
that-
got your YouTube channel.
I got
That
my-
could be
this is
that
next
could
channel.
be a just truly a side gig, but I guarantee the side gig would do better than the podcast gig.
Wow. So much to think about.
Another thing to add to your list.
Add it to the list.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes.
Well, Michael, it's been truly an honor to sit down with you. I appreciate all the insight. I now have a checklist
Do it.
that I
Get
have
there.
to execute on.
Embrace
Now,
the suck.
It's every day. It starts between 4 and 4:30. The last question that we have for you is, how did we do? How do we do?
Yes,
You're the interview expert.
Great. It was fun. Super fun.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Let's see. Let me see if I give demerits for anything. No, you didn't do the tell people how they can find you, which is the worst thing anybody can say on a show. It's like your job. And yeah, you're going to cover all that stuff in the intro. That's usually the thing I pin people on. It's like, all right, why don't you tell people where you can find you? I'm like, because it's your job to tell people where they can find me. But no, you guys were great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
So
My
glad-
voice is here now.
So glad
Yeah.
we stalked
My
you.
voice has arrived towards the end.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thanks. Jennifer Paul, thanks for stopping in here and sitting down with Juliet and I. She's got the giggles.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
so she's been sitting here joking with you guys. Some of us have been working for the last
Yeah, I
little
know.
bit. All right, everyone else is here messing
We're
around.
giggling.
Good. I did have them earlier, but I think I'm on point now.
Well, I appreciate you both coming in, spending some time with us. Well, I know you're going to speak soon.
Yes.
So we got to get you out of here,
Right.
but we're going to put you in the hot seat for a couple of minutes because we're
Okay.
going to talk about each of your podcasts. We're going to talk about women in podcasting, and we're going to talk about mental health.
Okay.
So lots of areas we go, and I know that each one of these could be 3-4 hours of discussion, and we'd still say we didn't get there.
Okay.
All right, but we got to start at the top of this. And what brought you both to Podfest?
Okay, so my journey actually started with my traumatic near-death workplace accident where I was crushed by 12,000 pounds of wood.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
And you said I was going to be shocked. Wow.
Yeah, I could...
Okay, you failed to mention that to me prior to this moment. You know that, right?
I do want to say I gave you my business card with a free download of my book on the back.
That's true.
And it said
That's
crushed
true.
alive.
Yeah.
So,
You didn't read it.
All right, he put it back on me. Okay.
yeah.
You haven't had
No.
time to read it in the last
Yeah.
24
No, I've
hours?
not had time to
What
read
have
the
you
book
been
in the last
doing, Fran?
24. I am going to read it now. I have you back.
I thought you'd have not done enough where you could actually have time to read the whole thing through.
Wow, though. I mean, that's right. You said I was going to be shocked, and I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I don't really get shocked a lot.
So
but that's
I could hear my body cracking, gurgling, and crunching. It felt like my head was going to explode. There was so much pressure. I thought to myself, if this doesn't stop, I'm going to die. I then blacked out. Now, I was without oxygen and not breathing for 12 minutes before finally regaining consciousness.
wow.
The immense pain was overwhelming. I was rushed to the hospital. Everyone thought I was dead before that. There was a lot of confusion and panic when I arrived. I didn't understand what was happening. Among other things, my organs were failing, so something had to change. But then, I was touched by an angel. That was my wife.
Aw.
Now, my injuries were critical at that moment, but I wasn't alone. So I felt like, okay, I can do this. Now, I have multiple physical and mental injuries. So I have spine, lung, shoulder, nerve damage. I have a permanent brain injury and cognitive disorder. I also have PTSD. So that's where later today I'll be speaking on a mental health panel. Now, I've incorporated numerous physical modalities and also mindset strategies, but the one strategy that I want to talk about that has been life-changing to me was telling my story.
Oh, I love that.
It was emotionally healing, and it helped me to move forward. Now, I noticed that every time I shared my story, people were compelled to share theirs back.
Right.
And I learned that stories are connection magic. And they're one of the most powerful ways we have to communicate and motivate. So my story, there's a quote by Wayne Dyer, and it said, if you believe it'll work out, you'll see opportunities. If you believe it won't, you'll see obstacles.
Yeah.
Yes, I love
I saw
that
the
quote.
possibilities in my story. Now, I had no idea I would ever have a podcast, write a book, finish my degree, become an international speaker, but that's what my story did. It took me from injured mill worker to international speaker. And so my passion now is to inspire and empower people to find their voice. And so I tell people, the situations that we've gone through to get here might be different, but there's similarities in our story. So share your message. The world needs to hear it. Your story matters.
And I just have to, because storytelling is it's what, I mean, it's so close to my heart. And I'm actually speaking about that today.
Cool.
And everything you just said is something that I say every day because it is so true. And I truly believe that everyone has a story. It doesn't matter, if you're a janitor to a president, everyone has a story and we can all learn from it if we just actively listen, not just hear, but actively listen and then take something from that. So I love how you just said that all. And it's beautiful.
To add to storytelling, so I did some research when I found the magic of storytelling. I call it connection magic.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I found out that in 2006, a study was published in the journal Neuroimage, and researchers in Spain determined that when it comes to inspiring people to understand a new change in themselves, storytelling is the most effective. And that's because we think and learn through stories.
Yes.
Stories activate up to 7 areas of the brain. So not only are the language processing parts activated, but any other area that you would use when experiencing the events of the story yourself, and that's the same for the listener. And that blows my mind.
Love that. Well, it connects, as you said.
Yeah.
Stories connect. I mean, when you told that part of your story, we want to know more, right? We feel like we can feel and how you told that as well is we I want to know more. Like, how long were you guys married? Where was this in your marriage? Like, Jennifer, how did you feel when you heard this? And
Yeah, I was at work and I got the worst call a wife wants to receive is his boss called and said, Paul's in the hospital. It doesn't look good. You need to come right now.
Oh.
And when I got there, I didn't recognize him. His whole body was crushed in. He had a punctured lung and everything. And so, he survived, thankfully, of course. But the days and weeks and months that followed were very difficult on both of us and him, of course, and our whole family. But his courage and determination were so inspiring to me. And what I really noticed, what really was so interesting, was all the communities that he was involved in before his accident rallied around him.
Yeah.
Oh, I love
And
that.
he was a volunteer coach, a football coach and football announcer in our community. And football players and coaches would come around and say, "We're here for you, Coach Paul."
Aww.
And, it made me realize that I had become isolated and stuck in my life and business. And so I actually, I thought I need to create some community for myself. And so the whole situation, I mean, it really blew up our lives, but it kind of ignited a new spark within me.
Yeah.
And I invited some business owners to lunch. I wasn't that organized with it back then. To my surprise, 50 business owners showed up. So that showed me that there was a need for deeper connection.
Right.
And that one meeting turned into a group, and that group turned into a network. And then I ended up with multiple chapters around my whole region of these business network. And it was, really life-changing for me. I approached the concept of community with fresh eyes. I learned how to collaborate rather than compete. I learned how to receive support and be surrounded by others, and work with others. And so that was so wonderful to me. Now I sold that network, and now I have the Women in Podcasting. I've built several successful communities. Community is so important to me. You have to build a community around whatever you're doing. Community is what we're doing everything for.
So community and adversity are two central themes to many of the conversations that I have on the Jedburgh podcast. And I say many times that it's not about the adversity that you face in life, that you are actually judged and you are made as a person by how you respond to that adversity.
Oh, yes.
Because so many times, as you've experienced, the adversity that you face is sometimes out of your control, right? Now, a lot of times in our lives it is within our control and we bring it on ourselves, but many times it is not. And we are therefore put in a position where we have to decide. I talk a lot about choice, right? And the choices that we make in our life to perform. And I say that we have a performance is a choice, and we have a choice in which we decide to perform and at what level we want to do that. But our ability to seize these moments and understand the broader context, the bigger picture, is what makes us as people. And I think that what you have both started to build at the back end of this crisis, that was put upon you, and come here and share that and be impactful and speak on this topic is so commendable.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, that means so much. And you talked about that we don't pick the situations that we're given. And Maya Angelou said exactly that. You don't pick the situations you're given, but you can decide how you respond to those.
Yes.
And, I was a mill worker, and, mindfulness, having a growth mindset, all of that was not in my vocabulary. But now she starts a network, and I'm invited to speak in front of small groups to start. And there were times I didn't want to go, and she dragged me. But one of those times, if I hadn't gone, I met a TEDx organizer who needed a speaker, and that turned out to be one of the greatest experiences of my life.
And, and so this is, I'm like, want to jump out because I'm like so excited about this, because this is where I talk about this so much. It's, first of all, you had a terrible, tragic situation happen. And as you said, you chose to rise above it, right? Mm-hmm. You didn't let it to define you, but you're going to take that situation and help others with it.
Yeah.
And then what I always tell people is, like, to find that space that they can daydream. Some people call it meditate. I call it daydream. I need to walk. I can't sit on a mat and meditate. I have to daydream. But think about things, or when I talk to people, what gets me excited? What like lights my fire? And then I need to explore that, right? So when I talk to someone and they get really excited about it, I'm like, why did I get excited about that? Now I need it. And so many people don't do that. And so what your wife saying, or Jennifer, I'm sorry, I'm like, your wife, Jennifer saying
right
to you,
here.
I know, I'm like talking like you're in the third person. That's where the giggles came in. But you from that experience of Jennifer saying, no, please just come because you're going to help someone. Your story is going to help someone else. And then the more you did it and the more you realized, you could hear the intonations of both of you when you spoke, right? Those are things that light you up. That's what excites you.
I have always been positive, but if I didn't have that support when I was feeling down,
right?
So she lifted me up when I wasn't up, and that is absolutely huge because we cannot do this alone. And she motivated and inspired me, and right before the pandemic, we started our own podcast together called inspiringinfluencers.com or Inspiring Influencers Show.
Right,
That's
I love that.
our website, so I know the difference. Anyways,
We have both domains.
But go to the website.
we have both. That's the website. But the easier website is inspiring.show. But I kind of do master your message, and my wife does monetize your message. And so we interview today's top thought leaders on their mindset and marketing strategies.
Love that.
Mm-hmm.
I have the Women in Podcasting show. I did the Women in Podcasting track yesterday at Podfest. It was amazing. The energy in the room was just incredible. And I have the Women in Podcasting show at womeninpodcasting.show.
Right. I mean, amazing. And we connected through Clubhouse
Yeah.
back in the day. So it was really fun when Fran said, we're going to have this couple on, Jen and Paul Henczel. And I was like, wait, I know Jennifer. And he's like, you do? And
She
I
was
like,
talking
"I
about you
do."
the other day.
Yeah.
And I said
when we
before,
were planning this out.
I said, there's this group. I said, there's this woman that I met. I know she's doing Women in Podcasting. I'm not going to be able to get her to track because I'm not here yet. But so it's really funny how those kind of things come full circle.
Is it okay if I say the story of how
Yes,
me and
please.
Fran
Yeah.
How you and Fran
Oh,
met.
yeah.
Yes.
So we're at the, is it okay to say
Yeah,
where we are? So we're
sure.
at the Hilton Orlando. We're at Podfest
Yes.
2022. Now we came from Vancouver, BC, Canada.
Love it.
And we're in Orlando. So we're sitting in the restaurant having steak and potatoes.
Right.
And I got to go to the washroom. But meanwhile, there's this small, tiny, cute little boy who's just peeking around. He's got his pacifier in his mouth. And I'm telling you that as a couple, I've maybe witnessed a child that young, that behaved, maybe twice.
Right.
All the kids at the
They
table.
weren't on the airplane.
Yeah. Now, I had to go to the washroom, and I said to Jen, look, I'm just going to tell him, because I think, as parents,
We love to hear that. Yeah.
that your kids are the most well-behaved kids I've ever seen. And of course, what did you say?
That you weren't on the airplane.
Yeah. And I said, well, I'm here now.
Right.
And they're absolutely wonderful.
And then you guys started
And
chatting.
Then we started chatting, and Fran has the whole podcast that he was telling me about, and
Right.
that's how we connected.
I love
so the power of networking, which by
Yes.
the way, I learned through my wife. So yes, I was a football coach, but I didn't know the power of networking.
Right.
But that led me to, that's what can happen.
And it's also the fact that you weren't nervous or scared or they don't need to know. The fact that you were like, you know what, I would like to share this with this couple because it means something. And that's what people also don't do enough. Right?
Yeah.
They don't talk and say, hi, they're scared or they're just not bothered or they just, it's so important to stop and talk to people and listen to people and share, hey, you know what? And I mean, that meant so much to you guys.
It made
of
us feel
course.
good. My wife and I have talked about it a couple of times. I mean, it did. I mean, because as you know, raising kids is hard, and
Yes.
it's trying. Especially him because he's absolutely wild.
Well, he's two.
And
I
now
mean,
now
he's
he's in a
supposed to be.
phase. Now he's in a phase where he refuses to sleep in a shirt. So he puts his pajama bottoms on, and now everything is no shirt, and then he keeps raising up his arms and he goes, "I'm strong."
Oh, I love that.
That's so
we
cute.
we have a
So cute.
son and daughter, and he's 27 now. But
Still
when
doing
he
that?
was young,
Same thing,
an
yeah.
absolute terror. We love
No,
him.
he
he's the greatest
But you know
human
what?
on the planet. But he was.
He would. Our kids were well behaved like
Yeah,
yours,
yeah,
but they had
they
their
were.
moments for sure.
And,
Yeah.
and I was saying to Fran, and not tooting my own horn now, but when my kids were little, even they're older, we always sat at tables and we always went out to dinner, and people would come up or the waitress would say, "Oh my gosh, your kids are so well behaved." They'd said please and thank you. But I would say to my husband, I it's so nice that they're sharing that with me, but it also makes me so sad that not more people are like this. We used to go to one of our favorite restaurants in Connecticut, and literally every time, a patron or someone would say, "Oh my gosh, it's so nice just to see a family sitting and talking and them not being on electronics and you guys having real conversations." And it is nice, but it also then hurt my heart that not more people are doing that.
Yeah.
You know,
I would like to say, if I could, that I didn't mean to call out my son that he was a terror. The main thing, in private, he didn't want to wear a hat leaving
Yeah,
the
that's
house
all.
when it was 35 degrees.
Yeah.
Oh, they all do that.
Yeah.
my kids still wear shorts in the
But
winter.
in public,
Yeah.
they were well behaved.
Yeah.
Right.
So
No, it's I go through that with my daughter. She's trying to go out to the bus and it's snowing out, and she's got a
Yeah.
short sleeve shirt on. I don't need my jacket. I don't want to carry it around school all day. No, that's
But,
nuts.
but so you know what I do when my kids say that? I'm like, fine, if you're going to be cold, you'll learn. And next time,
Yeah,
you
you'll
bring it.
learn.
So I let
Yeah.
I let them go out, and I mean my boys still wear shorts and sweatshirts. They don't wear jackets, and they're fine. And my daughter's the same. But she has gotten where she's a little bit more I want to put a jacket on because I've gotten cold. When she was little, we used to get people people would say, "Isn't she cold?" And I'm like, "She says she's not. I'm not going to force her to wear a jacket. If she wants to not wear one, yeah, she'll learn."
Can I ask you about working together? I mean, because you've gone through this journey together. I mean, before the accident and since after, which has brought you so much closer. Which we've talked about the ability of crisis to bring families and people together. I mean, understanding that. I'll say this and caveat that COVID for so many was so difficult, and it affected millions and millions of people's lives and their families. For my family, it brought us together.
Yeah, that's
and we had our son during COVID, but we came back together. I had traveled my entire career, and it was the first time where it's like you're not going anywhere.
Yeah. I'd like to say, we were approached. To my shock, I was asked dozens of times, "Oh, you're still with him?" Because apparently people
after the accident.
After the accident, apparently people in our situation, there's a lot of divorce, a very high divorce rate, and. I was just surprised by that. We've always very decisively chosen to stay positive,
right?
Yeah.
And to build our platform on positivity. And so there's been a lot of challenges, but we have had discussions and very, very decidedly, decided to stick to the positive side of things. And so that's made a huge difference.
Yeah. I'd like to add that, there's that saying, behind every man, there's a greater woman.
Right.
And that's definitely 100% true in this situation. What she dealt with, on her side, and what she had to put up with, yet who she was always consistent when I wasn't. Mm-hmm. So she inspired me to be stronger, and still does. So when I'm weak, I have someone there who knows my true self, who will always be there, and I wish I could be more like her. I really do.
Well, when one of us is down, the other one seems to be the support and up, so we have a good balance that way. Yeah. So I just want to encourage anyone to just keep going, keep breathing, keep taking the next step, take the next day.
Yeah.
And just stay on the path, and things will work out.
I do want to add, we tell each other separately we might be running at about 65-70%. But if you add that together, we're one really dynamic person.
Right. So 140%.
Yeah, 140%. I love that. I mean, that's pretty good math. Anyway.
That was good math.
Well, I think you're both operating at 100%. Yeah. So I've been it's been great to get to know you over the last couple of days, and we've had, been able to run into each other a few times and have a couple of really meaningful conversations. And I love the your topic and your story. What's next for you guys? You're gonna give your talk here in a couple minutes.
Yeah. So, at 1:30 I talk on mental health. But going home, I feel like I've now connected again to my true self. So I can be more consistent. I want to get back into the interviewer Paul, the interviewee Paul, and I have a couple things in the books, but I don't say that now. I want to.
Save it.
I want to be more. Okay, well, I will.
Yeah, right.
I don't want to say that now. I kind of set myself up. I want to be active more on social because that's her thing, and I'm kind of, I don't know. So I have done a few posts, but I want to get more active on Twitter, Instagram, and I want to start Paul's show. So I guess I'm putting it out in the universe because now that I said it,
now you got to do it.
Home and
we're
not
hold
do
you to it.
Right.
Yeah.
We're going to do a follow-up, and we're going to. I'm going to read the book. I'm going to read the book, and we're going to do a follow-up, and we're going to really unpack this entire story.
I see.
Okay, and then we're going to check out your social media.
Okay, so I got homework to do. So in the meantime, I'll try to gather followers, but it's going to be more of a fun thing. because
Enjoy it, yes.
Yeah, I kind of have a saying like I like short controlled bursts. I don't have the endurance I once did, but I think I have an out. So
Yeah.
Right. I mean, what a story. And I mean, and again, so nice to meet you in person.
Yes.
Not just hear your voice. I mean, we were on some Zoom calls together, so I
Yeah.
did get to.
We really clicked online though, and it's cool meeting face to face that we've really clicked
Yes.
through the conference. It's fun.
Yes, no, it really
Yeah.
is.
This conference, meeting everybody, meeting you, it just blows my mind. It was like it was meant to be.
Yes.
And honestly, you know, for the last 4 months planning coming from Vancouver, there were quite a few extra hurdles we had to climb to get here.
Oh, yeah.
But
Sure.
wow, you know, it was 100% worth it.
Awesome.
The
Well,
community here is so beautiful,
Yeah,
and thank
it
you
is.
so much for having us.
Yeah.
We love the work. We love finding out about the work that you're both doing. Fran, this is
Absolutely.
absolutely amazing, and Juliet, we're going to stay connected and
Yes.
do lots of
Yeah.
things together.
Yes, we
I
are.
do.
Awesome.
I do want to also say again, Fran, thank you for your service.
Yeah, well, thank you. I was truly an honor of my life, and just now it's about creating impact.
Yeah.
As you talked about,
Yeah.
how can we share the lessons that I was fortunate enough to have, and share others' lessons and put it out there for the world. And, if we can impact one person through every one of
Yeah.
these conversations,
Yes.
then I think we've done our job.
I agree. Yes, thanks. It's so nice meeting you guys.
Thank you.
You too.
Thank you.
Honor being on your show. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
American Jedburghs went out to form the foundation of the United States Special Forces and the Special Activities Director to the Central Intelligence Agency. Thanks for listening to the Jedburgh Podcast. I'm your creator and host, Fran Racioppi. Join us next week for a new episode on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Check us out on YouTube for full episodes, highlights, and other behind-the-scenes content. If you like what you heard, give us a like and leave a review. Follow me, Fran Racioppi, Talent War Group, and our sponsor Jersey Mike Subs on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. Send your comments and inquiries to media@talentwargroup.com. As former members of Special Operations Forces, the Jedburgh Podcast and Talent War Group contribute a percentage of all profits to the Special Operations Warrior Foundation, supporting the families of our fallen warriors. Thanks for joining us on this episode. How you prepare today determines success tomorrow.